Hi everyone, and welcome to your horoscope for the week of November the 22nd, 2021. We have a very active, super intense sky playing out all throughout the week, and not just because of the celestial conversations that are taking place, but also because, on one hand, we have still the lingering, reverberating effect of the very recent lunar eclipse in the sign of Taurus, which was like beyond even my imagination, to be totally honest with you. But this also leaves us in the period between eclipses, because very soon we're going to have the solar eclipse, a total solar eclipse in the sign of Sagittarius on the 4th of December, and that is also extremely intense, extremely life-changing, but it's very, very, very different than this lunar eclipse that we had, so that's a very good thing. It is tensionate and it is going to provoke us, let's say, in so very many different ways, and perhaps one of the big, big keywords to that is a deep change of faith, in a sense of an upgrade, if that even makes sense. And at the same time, a solar eclipse is a new moon, so it births something new. But because it takes place on the south node, it is not simply a random new beginning, but it's built on something very, very solid that we have been working for either the past 18 years of our lives, or for some of us, all of our lives. But of course, this is going to be a subject of a future horoscope, but I have to mention all of this because it's very important. We are already feeling this, to be totally honest with you. We are supposed to be feeling this, especially that this upcoming solar eclipse is going to take place on top of what astrologers call the Great Attractor, and that has some very prophetic qualities to it. Premonition, but it's not the wishy-washy Piscean kind of intuition, if you know what I mean, but it's more like quantum download. So it's quick and it's very, how should I say, direct. It is susceptible to interpretation, but not in a profoundly philosophical and symbolistic way. In a sense, it is beyond even philosophy, so it's really, really powerful. And that in itself, the energy of that future birthing celestial conversation, together with this massive purging Taurus lunar eclipse, acts almost like when we're holding the seed of a fruit between our fingers and we put a lot of pressure to it. One finger is the lunar eclipse, the other finger is the solar eclipse. And if Neptune, because Neptune is also going to be very relevant, adds a bit of moisture to the seed, well, what happens? It shoots. And that is a good thing because it's quantum leaping us somewhere, both individually, but definitely also collectively. So basically that is the positive side to this intense period. But the thing is, regardless of how very optimistic, very Sagittarian it's going to be like, right now we feel it as a huge pressure. This is where, for some of us, we can't even rationalize our way out of this. We may actually see it very clearly, rationally. We may be totally capable of understanding it and understanding it, of course, but it doesn't help. For some people, the effects of the lunar eclipse were so shocking, as in something happened in physical reality, that they're still processing it. For other people, it was such a massive emotional pain out of nowhere that their mind is kind of switched off. While for others, it's about relationships, it is about the complications of life, and these complications reflect deep wounds and weaknesses and things that we thought we healed, but surprise, surprise, they're not as healed as we expected. And also because this Taurus lunar eclipse, the moon was conjunct Algol, this kind of almost specifically targeted spiritual people or people with self-worth, self-esteem issues. So, that adds a lot of layer to this energy because, collectively we are co-creating, but when it is exactly the spiritual people, the spiritual sources in a very down-to-earth way, because, in society, it is those people who practice spirituality who are gateways to the spiritual energies, and usually they're healing, they're revelatory, they're soothing, comforting, inspirational, etc. But when that is targeted and eclipsed, shut down temporarily, that affects everyone in a not so positive sense. So right now, especially at the beginning of the week, we may be feeling a tiny bit hopeless, stuck up, overthinking, overfeeling, over everything at the same time. So it's really, really heavy. But fortunately, as we move on and navigate to the end of the week, the energies are going to shift, and it will be the upcoming solar eclipse that will act like a magnet, drawing us, attracting us into the specific state. So our despair and the heavy feelings and the pain that we may be feeling at the beginning of the week may transform into an irresistible soul call for us to already try our hardest to plant those seeds of intentions that all of us need, both individually, specific to our lives, and also collectively, the world that we want to co-create into the great ether, so to speak. And that is a really good expression of this energy, because regardless of what hardships, emotional, mental, etc. we may be feeling, we can only plant seeds with intent, with empowerment, and with hope in our hearts, so that will be pulled to the surface as well. So in a symbolic way, where Algol kind of pulled the despair up to the surface, the solar eclipse is going to be pulling the hope, the ideal, the big dream to the surface. And I'm not saying that that's gonna be easy or it's gonna be joyful, but like it or not, we are going to be motivated to already start, projecting the future that we want onto everything that we do. And of course, some of you guys might be asking yourself that isn't this actually madness to feel things in such a intense dual way, almost like a dichotomy, feeling something and the opposite of it at the same time without any kind of limits between the two. But what I can say, this is the specific, welcome to the age of Aquarius, because this is the perhaps most distinctive expression of Aquarius, because Aquarius is very, very dual, but it's also a fixed sign. So it can hold the duality in its most perfect expression without a link, a bridge having to exist between the two. Whereas look at the other dual signs, for example, Gemini, Pisces, even Libra. The glyphs of those signs do have a bridge between them. So that means that the states can be navigated and balanced out. For Aquarius, it's just the two waves parallel to each other, and parallel is the key word. Both can exist at the same time, almost in an unapologetic way. It doesn't make sense sometimes. It even defies ration. It defines reality. Yet, welcome to the age of Aquarius. We'll be having a lot more of this energy, that's for certain. But at the end of the day, we have to adapt to this. Our nervous system, in its physical sense, has to adapt to exist in duality, and for this not to be a burden, not to be maddening, not to be insane. And we don't even have that much time to adapt to this energy. because in 2024, Pluto moves into the sign of Aquarius, so that means that the game is truly on. When Pluto touches a sign, that means start game. And Pluto is usually the most difficult setting of the game, so it's not gonna be easy. But if we adapt to it, if we are open to all of this right now, and we try our hardest to cope, to, manage, to be able to swim in these waters and not allow them to drown us, that means that by the time Pluto reaches this part of the sky, we are already going to have everything that we need to turn it into our power, into our strength, because that's also an expression of Pluto. And even though this isn't necessarily the astrology of this week, it still has to be mentioned because this is the big goal. This is the purpose. This is the evolutionary intent. And if some of you guys are interested in evolutionary astrology, there are some brilliant astrologers out there who can truly reveal what the big purposes of any astrological conversation, of any energy is. It is evolving us, and those astrologers focus on what exactly are we evolving into. So with all of this being said, let's see what happens next week. And we begin the week with a very powerful energy shift, the sun moving into the sign of Sagittarius from Scorpio. And this is like a really good energy because, Scorpio loses a part of its intensity with the sun exiting from it. So it just leaves Mars there because Mercury very soon follows the sun. And Mars in its ancient ruling sign of Scorpio is more than enough alone. That's enough intensity there. We don't need any more of that. And while Scorpio is a very, very heavy energy, regardless of how we look at it, it's so very intense that it just adds a lot of gravity, a lot of pressure, a lot of almost like an obsession to everything that it does. Sagittarius is totally different. Sagittarius lives up in the starry sky. It is philosophy. It is hopeful. It is justice. It has no bounds. It has no limit. The mind, the imagination is the limit. And the sun is also quite comfortable in a fire sign. So that's a real good thing because one way or another, regardless of how the aspects are, it still gives us the power to hope. It gives us the power to believe that much stronger. It makes us more optimistic. It makes us more connected to the divine out of sheer instinct. So that is a good sign. Now Mercury moving in this part of the sky on the 24th of November, well, Mercury is not able to bring out its very best qualities in Sagittarius because Mercury is the ruling planet of Gemini and Sagittarius is its opposite sign, so it is imprisoned in detriment, so to speak. But that is not necessarily a bad energy because it makes Mercury way too quick. Mercury is very quick on its own. It has Uranian qualities to it because it's the lower octave of Uranus, but in the sign of Sagittarius, well, it's hyper, which kind of strips the focus, the concentration away from Mercury, so it can make it a little bit exaggerated, superficial, way too hopeful, if that makes sense. But the positive side, it makes it that much quicker. Quickness means, yes, misunderstanding, misinterpretations, misaligned everything. That's a possibility. But at the same time, at least communication is very quick, it is spontaneous, it is instantaneous. Mercury in the sign of Sagittarius always favors international communication, and especially in the global context, that is really, really positive because it can make news travel even quicker than it has been until this time. And that means preparation. even if it's not favorable news. For example, more restriction, borders are going to be locked, etc., etc. Well, chances are this information is going to come out before it's official, so everyone has time to prepare, to adapt, etc. And at the same time, we also have a very powerful alignment taking place where the Sun and Mercury meet in a conjunction in the sign of Sagittarius, and this is also a very prophetic energy. It gives a lot of clarity, especially that both of these planets, before they reach their conjunction, are going to speak in another conjunction with the South Node in Sagittarius. And that is a really good thing. It's not an easy energy because the South Node is, for example, all the mistakes of the past, all the lessons of the past, all the wisdom of the past. But that also means things that we're excessively good at. So it is a very, very good reminder of everything that we master, everything that we excel at, everything that basically makes us embody the expression of Sagittarius. But it also basically sparks up wisdom. It sparks up our life experience, so we are able to make really good decisions under this energy. For example, not to repeat the mistakes of the past. Even if some situations from the past, the patterns, let's say, recur, we are different people than we were in the past. So that means we're able to make different decisions, see the world and everything in our lives through a totally different lens. And those who are truly wise, under this energy, they will try to look at everything from the perspective of the observer, and that is gonna be a massive empowerment. And when it gets to the Sun and Mercury conjunction a bit later on, the prophetic energy, well, it can really align us to our futures and give us the strength, the ambition, the courage, and the keyword here, the belief and the faith to move mountains if needed for our futures. And this is like a preparation for what is going to happen in our lives, both individually and collectively, around the time of the solar eclipse. But of course, even going way further into the future, because any solar eclipse has a 6-month period to manifest. So it's not just about the 4th of December, it's about the next 6 months in our lives that are going to be pivotal, life-changing, faith-changing, worldview changing, and that means everything changes, everything upgrades, everything aligns to what it has to be, because our perceptions, our faith, our belief system determine our reality, and this goes for every single human being, even for atheists. So it's not something religious or spiritual. Atheists also believe, let's say, in irrationality, in logic, how things are made and designed to be, and that is basically their faith. So basically every living being is subjected to this. So that's why it's so big. And this is also how the Taurus lunar eclipse comes into play, because everything that we do, we have to do with full knowledge of our wounds, weaknesses, vulnerability, especially those which are not even susceptible to healing. Let's be honest, there are a lot of scars inside of us that will not heal, and this is something we have to accept and not even try the impossible. As long as we are aware and we treat ourselves with kindness, understanding, patience, those scars are actually virtues. So that is why it was reminded of us in the most painful ways, because we have to be aware of them. We also have to be aware of our limitations, because Sagittarius wants to aim for the stars, as I said. It wants to have no limits. That's Jupiter, isn't it? The king of the gods. But that sometimes is not a good thing, because it leads to disappointment and deep sorrow. So when we're aiming to the sky, to the stars when we want to have no limits, in our faith at least. If we know our vulnerability, if we know that which doesn't heal inside of us, then we can discipline it, temper it. That's true wisdom. That's the South Node. That's true awareness, that we're only aiming as high as we're comfortable of going. And at the end of the day, that is happiness, that is fulfillment for us personally. But with this being said, let's get back to the beginning of the week, because there are very powerful other energies in the sky. One of them is like ongoing. We will have this energy all of 2021. And yes, it's the Saturn and Uranus square that is growing in intensity. So, it's the same theme that's been playing out all throughout this year. Challenges, surprises, unexpected. We will struggle so hard to overcome limitations, to overcome obstacles, and we will feel this very anxious state, a very unusual motivation coming from our nervous system actually, that we have to do it, we have to make it, we have to start stepping into the future in a physical, concrete, down-to-earth way, Saturn. But I don't even want to focus right now on this energy, because we have had so much of this already, and it's gonna peak on 24th December 2021, and it will also stay with us for the first half at least of 2022. So we know this: in with the new, out with the old, easy said, very, very hard done. We also have another blockage type energy here, where Jupiter squares Mercury. Mercury still in Scorpio at the beginning of the week. So the worst expression of this energy is like serious worry, overthinking, drama, where we make our situations 10 times worse by wanting to dwell in the drama and amplifying it for ourselves. Self-victimization tendency, but where the mind is a catalyst. So, my advice to everyone, please don't do that. When you catch yourself doing that, do whatever it is in your power to stop immediately, because you don't want to manifest that. Listen to a song, do whatever that detaches you a tiny little bit, but don't stay in the overthinking, overfeeling, self-victimization energy, because that is very, let's say, creational right now. It manifests. The other not so favorable expression of this energy is believing that which might not truly be real, projecting way too much hope, or believing in ourselves in perhaps not the most healthiest ways. Like, let me just give an example. Someone suffers from anxiety, and that's not a secret, that's nothing new, and they have this unusual Jupiterian courage to go to a concert, a bad inspiration, and instead of being okay and being proud of themselves that they've done it, they get a massive panic attack, and they won't thank themselves for this. So, be careful to manage your hopes in a healthy way, because this energy might want to make you believe that things are much better than they actually are. So don't get lost in the illusion, and the illusion is going to be a big, big theme towards the end of the week. But of course, the positive expression of this energy, Mercury in the anaretic degrees, the last decan of Scorpio, bad news, challenges, emotional down, depression, the harder feelings. But this is where Jupiter can just inspire you, in the sense that as bad as it is right now in the present moment, don't give up faith, don't give up hope, because somehow, some way, as long as you hold hope in your hearts, it's still gonna be okay. It is the kind of energy where, when someone tells you, regardless of how bad the situation is, that it's going to be okay, it has like a magic effect. It still makes you feel better even if you don't want it, even if you don't want to believe it, but that it's gonna be okay has some kind of magic in it. It just helps. And Jupiter in Aquarius, that can actually be a person, a friend, an acquaintance, a connection, anyone. If someone just tells you it's gonna be okay, it just helps. It has some kind of magical healing quality to it that actually gives you the strength to go on. But of course, we have a lot of positive conversations as well in the sky. Venus sextile Mars, for example. Venus, the female principle, Mars, the male principle. This has manifestation or attraction or getting what you seek written all over it. Of course, you have to input some effort, regardless of what nature that effort is. But this is really good for work, for career, for investing time, energy, and effort into something and that coming to fruition very quickly. It is also favorable for attracting people, regardless of what kind of attraction we are talking about. This is also profoundly healing energy, emotionally and, yes, sexually. Then we also have Venus still trining Uranus, and Uranus is in Venus's home sign of Taurus, so there is a powerful synergy here. This is, surprise, surprise, what you wish, what you need, and I would concentrate much more on need, because Venus is in Capricorn, where it's gonna go retrograde, but that's also a subject of a future horoscope. That it's more like basic need or something that you practically need in your life for success, for greater well-being, to enable something. So Uranus can very quickly, out of chaos, creative chaos, deliver it into your life. And why not, this energy can also be romantic, because Taurus is our five senses that need to be fulfilled. Physical needs, sexual needs, let's say, that is also part of Taurus, and there is no shame or guilt in this. Sexual activities, but the healthy kind, not the dark scorpionic expression of these, is profoundly healing and regenerative. Because if I'm not mistaken, I'm not an expert in this, the sexual chakra is the regeneration center, the physical regeneration center. So when there is genuine attraction and it's uplifting, well, it can help in so very many areas of life, like especially that this is a physical energy, hormonal. Hormones do help. Happy hormones, for example, that is profoundly regenerative. So this is also going to be a big part of this theme. Then we also have Mercury sextiling Pluto. For example, getting what you want through speech, communication, even projection. And this also has a profoundly healing effect. Sharing your pain, your hurt, your sorrow, your frustration even with someone really, really helps. It frees you. It kind of liberates those emotions, and it also acts as a mirror for yourself, so you can clearly see objectively what hurts you. And sharing your pain with someone, that's profoundly healing. That's psychology, basically. That's perhaps the primarily function of any psychologist, therapist, that someone shares their pain, and the act of sharing alone is healing. But later on, especially around the 24th, Mercury is going to be in anaretic degree, 29 degrees of Scorpio. That's a little bit heavy. This is the energy where impactful secrets, especially personally speaking, are going to be revealed. They just pop up. But at the same time, this is where we project everything that unsettles us onto everyone. So this may give birth to angry words, conflict, misunderstandings, but of the heavy emotional kind, so not something we laugh about later on. This is where it's really no laughing matter. So be aware of this energy and just try not to be toxic. And you might say, well, I'm not too toxic, but all of us are toxic. there is no human being in existence who isn't toxic. And especially if you know that you have very relevant planets or placements in water signs, you are toxic. You have this potential to be toxic. Of course, you mustn't look at this as something negative. Every being defends itself in different ways. In nature, some beings, some creatures, some animals are not toxic to hunt or harm, but they're toxic in a self-defense way. Like certain frogs, insects, etc. And there is nothing to be ashamed of as long as we are aware. When we are aware, we can control it, or maybe even if we cannot control it, we just apologize, I'm sorry. And that makes all the difference. Now, as we navigate to the very end of the week, we have a truly beautiful celestial conversation, one of my personal favorites, where Mars in its home sign of Scorpio holds a trine with Neptune in its home sign of Pisces. This is pure magic. This is psychological strength at its finest. This is manifestation energy of any shape, way, or form, especially that Neptune is hyper strong because it's standing still in the sky preparing to go direct the week after. So both of these planets are super strong. So this is where dreams can actually become reality. This is where we can actually have what we want in the most unusual and miraculous ways if needed. This is where the divine works for us, in us, through us, without us, outside. You know, this is the epitome of what divine work is. This is a supremely harmonious energy, a big blessing for artists, spiritualists. Needless to say how healing this is. Neptune being in the third decan of Pisces, undoing of the self. But of course that can be seen as something profoundly dissolving and healing, liberating, freeing. This is where we want to shed off our old skins. And if we help this process, not just wait for it to fall off, we get on our healing journeys, regeneration journeys, rebirth, reinvention, anything that much quicker. The artistic or spiritual inspiration that we might have at this time, now that is truly on the next level. So embrace this energy, create, or even if you cannot create for any reason, journal it, write it down. Do not forget your dreams. Do not forget your inspirations. And don't forget, this is where intuition and instinct meet and embrace each other. And these energies are each other's higher octaves, because intuition is actually a spiritualized, a very elevated instinct, gut feeling. And when these two meet in harmony, that's when we know what to do. We don't have to think about it. We don't have to rational. We can be as lost as we want in our lives, in the world, etc. But our instincts and intuition will definitely guide us this time. So if we are lost, if this is the biggest problem that we are facing right now, and a lot of us are, because we are supposed to be very lost. Neptune, everything that's going on in the world, the media, the lies, the deception, the psychological warfare. Of course we are lost, but this is the cure. This is divine guidance at its most finest. This is where Mars is direct. Mars doesn't need that much symbolism. This is where the divine, one way or another, can tell you directly what to do, what not to do, or just push you in the right direction through your instincts, desires, etc. Now, I have to mention this, even though it's a trine, and trines are always blessings, there is a different side to this, because Mars in Scorpio can be very dark. Neptune stationary, standing still in the sky, is illusion. It is deception at its epitome, if that makes sense. And we are living those times when that is the big theme. So we have to make sure to detach whatever is going on out there, because we have to make this energy, we have to turn it into our own blessing. This is personal, this is the divine and us. But if we allow the other expression of this energy to influence us, it will defeat us, definitely. Because if we are empowered in such a strong way, well, you can imagine though the deceivers, everyone who creates the illusion, who spreads fake news, or all of this is equally going to be empowered. This is the strongest expression of Neptune. So yes, our divine guidance and inner GPS is going to be spot on. It's going to be so powerful, miraculous even. But also the dark side, also those who want to deceive, also those who want to manipulate. And Scorpio, Mars in Scorpio is a financial energy as well. So be careful not to be conned. Be very careful who you trust with your money, investments and stuff like that. Be careful of what contract you sign, the fine print or how you call it. Even though this energy usually would have nothing to do with that, but under the present circumstances, well, just be sure to know what you're agreeing to. And yet another negative expression of this energy, even though it's even madness for me, an astrologer, to speak about a trine as being something negative, well, Neptune can also be lies. Mars intention. So this is when someone lies with power, with purpose, with this psychological knowledge and strength. So don't let fear, don't let bad news, don't let imminent doom and gloom, what you might see, just turn the TV off, turn Facebook off, turn social media off, turn every source of fear off, and just make this energy your own. At least at the end, next Sunday, so the 28th of November, and a couple of days after, turn it off and make this divine blessing your own. And another supremely harmonious energy is that both the Sun and Mercury are gonna start sextiling, so it's not exact yet, Saturn. And that is very, very, very good, because Saturn is physical reality, Saturn is completion, Saturn is getting the fruits of your labor, what you've worked for. And at this time, Sun and Mercury are in Sagittarius. So that can do a lot of good in so very many different ways. Let me just tell it this way. Saturn in the sign of Aquarius values intelligence and the power of the mind, a disciplined mind, ambitious mind, more than anything. Mercury is the planet of intelligence. And yes, it's not as strong in the sign of Sagittarius, but it is very susceptible to inspiration, divine inspiration, the inspiration of your mentor, teachers, best friends, etc. Mercury in the sign of Sagittarius is all about international connections, so there is so much potential to the sun. The sun there is illuminating you, showing everyone who you truly are based on your deepest faith, principles, life philosophy. So that means connections. That means so many people in the world out there have the same principles, the same worldviews, and people who are very alike connect to each other. So this energy can do so much good, especially that Aquarius is interhuman connections. We are all one. So you can imagine how you might find your tribe, your people, your boys or girls, your brethren, but call this however you want, under this energy. And as I said, this is not exact yet next week, so this also extends to the week after. These are big blessings, but it's so important for us to be aware and conscious and, not drowning totally at this time in all the drama and everything, because the power of the eclipses, remember, the two fingers squeezing the seed. That's the eclipses. So we are forced to stay, live, exist, work, do all of what I said under great pressure. But if we at least try our hardest to be aware and not drown under the big sea of everything, we aim where that seed goes, and we know that it's gonna shoot up. And if we direct it to where we need it to go, Mars in the sign of Scorpio, singularity, aim, focus, then we strike jackpot. Then we embody the most positive expression of Mars in Scorpio, the treasure seeker energy, finding the treasure and making it our own. So my advice is swim, try at least to have one nostril above the water and you're still okay. But speaking about the water, yes, as I said, Neptune is stationary direct at the very end of the week, and this stationary direct energy is going to influence us for all of the week after. And naturally this is good in so very many different ways. It's healing. This is where we snap out of it, if you know what I mean. This is where we take our spirituality and connection to source, our arts, everything Neptunian in nature, that much more seriously. We may experience a very powerful soul call to live our truth at this moment, because our truths are always subjective, so that is the way it has to be. But the negative side of this energy is everything that's going on out there. The illusion, the lie, the deception, the mist, the flooding of these emotions and fear, and the mass psychosis is gonna get even more intense. And that is the ocean we have to swim in. And chances are it's not gonna be a still water, it's gonna be turbulent, very, very turbulent. So we have to prepare ourselves to keep that nostril always above water, because we can do this. And you know, when the ocean's turbulent, a wave might actually catapult us way further into our journeys than we could possibly swim. So it's not all bad. But if we get lost in the external, in the global agenda, if that makes sense, then it's almost like a whirlpool. We may not allow that to suck us in, because that will take us back to square one. And that's painful under the present circumstances for all of us. And last but not least, this very powerful Neptune has also a physical expression to it. And I'm not talking about floods and the destructive force of water and tsunamis and stuff like that, because yes, that's also included. Heavy rainfalls, maybe flooding. Yes, but from a, let's say, more psychological perspective, whenever Neptune is very, very powerful, well, there is a magical quality to it. And some of you might be laughing when I'm saying this. The power of an embrace, the power of a hug, a cuddle, let's say. Because, you know, when two heart chakras actually meet one another, that's miraculous. That heals. That is almost like a transfusion of heart energy, of love, which kind of acts as a miracle cure. It makes you feel better. It makes you feel less alone. It just does some kind of magic to you. It's also, like, from an esoteric perspective, an exchange of energy with another being. So of course you feel empowered. Of course it makes you feel better. Of course it sparks up your willingness to live, your hope, and all of that. So whenever you're feeling like drowning in the Neptunian waters, hug someone, even if it's an animal. Your dog, your cat, whatever is the object of your affection, hug them, and I can guarantee you that it will make you feel better. And if you are in a romantic relationship, have a partner, well then use the Mars trine Neptune energy, where both of these planets are hyper strong, to detach both of you out of the collective drama and, just shower each other with as much affection as you possibly can in any way, shape, whatever that means to you. Let your affection, let your feelings have no bounds, and it will be like living in your personal little bubble where you're so very safe from whatever is going on outside. This is the best possible cure. And of course, those who do not have a partner and would very much like to have one, but it is what it is, use Neptune as fantasy. If there is ever a time to fantasize about love and any of its expression, and to make that energy healing, that time is now. Fantasize it. And as I said, this is also manifestation energy. You never know how that fantasy might want to play out in your reality one way or another. So yes, it is going to be hyper tense. In some ways, it can even be nightmarish, where you just don't believe that you're living this. And when I say it's not as much personal, where your life is hell, but you can't believe that these times are the way they are right now, and you're caught up in it, almost like a fly in a spider's web. But as I said, there is so much coping, inspiration, divine guidance, inner GPS, and everything that we could possibly want in the sky as well. So let's use that right. Let's be strong right now. Let's try to be very, very mature, wise, and see the pressure as a motor, as something that we need to catapult us, to quantum leap us. And that is exactly what the upcoming solar eclipse is going to be doing. And not just that, so many other celestial conversations, even in 2022. So we must work with this right now and not drown. And I said this to certain people who I counseled. Your future self is going to be so thankful and grateful to you for being strong right now, for acting like your own protector, carer, hero, Perseus, if you will. As hard as it may seem right now, we just have to do it. We have to. Our future literally depends on this. And it's not just about survival. It's about actually living in a reality, let's say, that we can thrive in. A reality which doesn't defeat us with every single step. That is so very important right now. So we must believe in this with all our hearts. And also the South Node in Sagittarius. We did have so very many events in the past when situations and things turned out to, in a miraculous way more positive, way more better than we could possibly imagine, or when we were saved miraculously. So it's not a vain belief. It's not believing lies. We lived it, so we need to turn it into our strength right now. So with this being said, thank you so very much for listening. I hope that this was helpful. Keep on doing the work, because we are definitely not going to regret it. And remember the power of the hug. That's all you need to do to be someone's hero next week. So I highly encourage everyone. Thank you again. Until next time, bye for now.